Welcome back everybody to another episode of our weekly Moto News Roundup, where this time we've got some updates to the Triumph Tiger lineup, the full details of the new Brabus 1400R Naked, and an SP version of Honda's Transalp for 2026. Then we've got a brilliant new giveaway in partnership with ASV, some slightly more unusual products that we didn't manage to cover in our main videos from EICMA. Honda announced a bit of a rebrand, as do OHLINS, KTM's off-road experience returns, and we'll finish off with a look at this beautiful custom Bear 650 that you can actually buy from the bike shed. But first up, let's take a look at those two special editions that have just been announced for the Triumph Tiger 900 and also the 1200s. As in previous years, we've got an Alpine edition and a Desert edition, with the Alpine being a little bit more road focused, whereas the Deserts have more of an off-road slant. So we'll have a look at those 900s. The Alpine, as you can imagine, is based upon the lower slung cast wheel GT Pro, and it gets its own dedicated paint job with the Snowdonia white along with black and blue accents. The Desert Edition is built upon the Tiger 900 Rally Pro, and this one comes in urban grey with a bit of black and orange. As for the hardware, well, the GT gets the lower engine bars thrown in. The Rally Pro, so the Desert Edition, already has them, so they've actually thrown in the upper tank protection bars, and both of them, for the first time ever, will come fitted with the Akropovich accessory silencer as standard. Now the Tiger 1200s, well, there's a choice of two colours for each, so the Alpine Edition on the GT Pro and the Desert Edition on the Tiger 1200 Rally Pro. They've definitely gone sort of graphical and punchy with these, so that could be really good news if you like your bikes that kind of way. But perhaps these get the biggest technical upgrades with the heated rider and passenger seats as standard, and also the rear-facing radar, which enables blind spot warnings and lane change assist. Now previously these were only available on the 30-litre Explorer versions of both the GT and Rally, but now you get them on these regular 20-litre tank versions, and so if you wanted the slightly lighter bike, especially when it's fully fueled up, but still with the full-on tech, the best of the best in terms of what they can offer, then these new additions might look quite tempting. Apparently they'll be in dealers from January 2026, and although I don't have prices at the time of scripting this video, well, of course you can expect them to be a little bit more than the standard versions of each. Next up though, this stunning new bike from the German cartooners Brabus, and it's not their first two-wheeler. They've collaborated with KTM a number of times in the past, but this latest, the 1400R, is based upon probably the best bike yet, with it being the 1390 Super Duke R Evo. That means underneath you've got that 1390 V-twin that makes 190 horsepower peak and 145 newton meters of peak torque. You've got the full suite of KTM tech to keep it all under control, and it's suspended on their WP Apex semi-active suspension for optimal damping in pretty much all conditions. Where the Brabus work starts though is with the restyling. It's more of a visual change than it is a complete re-engineering, but I gotta say this really stealthy finish looks properly mean, and I think it'll definitely appeal to anybody who likes that kind of butt bike aesthetic. They've changed quite a lot of the bodywork, they've given it its own paint job, they've also changed the headlight. I really like what they've done there up front. There's carbon in the bodywork, plenty of billet hardware too, but then also their monoblock design 3-spoke wheels, which do give a little nod back to the automotive past of Brabus. Now from a functional perspective, you also get a bit of a braking upgrade with Brembo's latest high pure calipers, and also there's a high level twin underseat exhaust, which we saw in the spy shots of this bike, but we can now see it in all its glory, and I think it's a really nice design point. Although I will add again, as I said last time around with the spy shots of this bike, they say it's only going to be available outside the US, so anyone who wants to buy one of these inside the US, I guess I'll have to make do with the standard Super Duke exhaust. But yeah, I think a very special looking bike. I just wouldn't expect to see too many of them out on the road, with just 100 being made and a starting price of £44,299, well over double a standard Super Duke R Evo. And so I'd love to know from you down in the comments, Does it really look twice as good, or would you rather just have the standard Super Duke? A bike I think everyone will approve of though as an improvement versus the standard version is this new Transalp SP, which was kind of sneakily announced last week amongst the avalanche of news that was coming out of EICMA. Now, I do believe it's been on sale in the past in other European markets. I think for 2025 they sold it in Spain and Portugal, but for 2026 it's also now available in the UK and it will come in at £10,499. Now, we don't have the 2026 price yet for the Transalps, but I think that's about 600 or 700 quid more than what they were charging for the standard bike in 2025. And so for your money, you're getting a retro-inspired graphics kit, which I think looks really good on top of that standard white base bike with the gold rims bringing a little bit of bling as well. You also get the upper crash bars thrown in, the lower engine bars as well, and also a substantially beefed up sump guard. And so, you know, it's not the most off-road biased adventure bike in that middleweight sector. It's not as tall as a Tenere 700, for example. But if you do want to do something a little more challenging than your average trail, then all that extra protection and resilience is certainly going to be appreciated. Now, it has been a few weeks since we've had a giveaway on the go, but I'm very pleased to announce that we're back. And this time it's in partnership with the fine folks at ASV Inventions. Now, ASV have a reputation for making the best of the best in terms of motorcycle levers, and it's exactly where you want the best of the best because you want fine levels of control from some high quality levers. I've just fitted a set to my Bonnie a couple of weeks back. Tim's got some on his Monster too, and I can say their reputation is absolutely deserved. As you can see here, you've got a super smooth action because they use precision sealed bearings in the pivot, but also if you've got particularly big or small hands, you'll be very pleased to know that they've got a massive range of adjustment with up to, I think, 4 inches, and also this micro adjuster that goes through 180 steps, so you can get them perfectly dialed into your personal hand dimensions. And they're just beautifully made as well, CNC'd from billet aluminium to add that extra premium look to the cockpit of your bike. Not only that though, but they also give them a 5-year unconditional crash damage guarantee. And the reason that they can be so confident, I guess, number one is the build quality, but also they have this pivot mid-lever, and so that means they should fold out in a crash and hopefully save your levers. I think they're absolutely fantastic. So if you do want to take a look, there's a link down in the description below. And also, if you don't fancy your chances of winning the giveaway, we've got a discount code for 15% plus free shipping. And if you are shopping outside of the US with an international order, then you really can save quite a bit of money with that code. But look, we always like to put a bit of a bundle together for these giveaways to make them a really exciting prize. And so I'm very grateful to Quad Lock this week for throwing in a $150 voucher so you can get the absolute perfect phone mount setup for your cockpit to match with these very nice levers. So a huge thanks to them. And then also we've partnered with Bowtex to get you some brilliant riding gear. Let me show you this. You see, Bowtex make these fantastic base layers made of Dyneema, so they fit perfectly under other riding gear or perhaps just regular casual gear. And then they're also fully protected. They're AAA certified. This top's got level 2 armor in the elbows and the shoulders. You can also put a back protector in. And then they make matching leggings as well, which also have level 2 hip and knee armor. So if you want to commute on your motorbike but wear regular clothes so you look normal when you get to the office, or if you want to make use of some really good technical clothes like waterproofs and stuff like that, then they're amazing. You can do that. Just put them underneath and you can go out and ride and be fully protected. I think this is a brilliant prize, so do check out the link down in the description to get entered. And I should also add, on top of the levers, ASV are throwing in a whole bunch of other brilliant ASV goodies. Now, I did say we were going to cover off some of the more unusual bikes from EICMA. We tried to cover all the big hitters from Honda and BMW and Suzuki and stuff like that, but there were a few other different bikes perhaps that maybe don't quite have mass appeal, but I still wanted to include here because I found them really interesting. Now, one was on the standard Indian. They had a couple of new bikes for EICMA, like the Sport Scout RT, the Sport Scout 60, but this one, the concept Girder, really caught caught my eye as something just a little bit different. Now they say they built it to really celebrate the girder fork, with it blending bold design with unmatched engineering. The girder fork was first introduced on the Indian Chief 80 years ago in 1946, nearly as legendary as the valanced fenders or the Indian headdress. The girder front-end design was a defining development and a significant improvement over the previous leaf-sprung design. Thing is though, I can't see this one making it to production because they recently announced, pretty much in line with EICMA, that they won't be using their air-cooled Thunderstroke engine anymore in the UK and Europe because of the stricter emissions regulations. So for their big Tourers and baggers and stuff like that, you can only get their liquid-cooled Power Plus bikes, whereas this concept is on the Thunderstroke, and so this very much looks like a celebration of what they can do in terms of design and engineering, rather than something that's ever going to make it onto the mass market. One thing that could do though, one of the other curiosities though that I feel is more likely to make it to a production bike, is this one from Chinese brand BENDA with a little 250 called the P51. You see, BENDA make some really unusual bikes already, and so I really wouldn't put it past them to get something like this on the market. With a little 250 Boxer twin, a very unusual configuration in its own right, but also they've paired it with a battery and motor to make it into a hybrid. The result is something quite impressive. It makes 62 horsepower peak, which is pretty much unheard of for a 250, and also they've managed to keep the weight impressively low at 178 kilograms curb, or so they claim. Now, not only that, but they also say the engine, motor and battery have been packaged in a way to optimize for traction, and so they say 0 to 60 can be done in just 3.7 seconds, which is very quick indeed for a 250cc bike. Perhaps even more unusual though is this new helmet design from Roof called the JAGGER, and I've got to say, Roof always makes some fairly out there looking helmets, but this one actually looks like some AI generated sci-fi content. The idea is to do away with the chin strap of a regular helmet, and so you more so put it on like a mask and then enclose yourself at the back to make sure it's nice and snug. What's the point though? Well, they say one of the benefits is if you do wear glasses, you don't have to take them on and off if you're taking your helmet on and off. It sounds like perhaps a trivial detail, but I've got to say it is quite annoying. But also they say it's more comfortable and quieter. I suppose if you don't have to get your head through the hole at the bottom of the helmet, well, they can actually make it a bit tighter, and that might stop a bit of wind noise coming up and in, so maybe it will be quieter out on the road. I think though most of them, if they do make it to the market, is still a prototype for now, would be sold for that cool entry mechanism, just for the novelty factor and how it looks. But as always, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Now, one bike we did cover was the Honda V3R900 concept, one of my favorite bikes of the show, with that new V3 engine that has an E-compressor up top, put into a, potential concept chassis that made for a very aggressive looking and exciting looking naked sporty bike. One thing you might have missed though, because of all the camouflage on the finish, is a new little logo on the tank, which Honda say is their direction of travel now. They're going to start using that emblem, let's say, on all of the premium bikes from 2026 onwards. So they'll keep the regular wing and Honda text for most of their internal combustion bikes. The top end stuff, so the Fireblade, the Gold Wing and stuff like that, will get this new emblem that's black with just the wing, a little more simple. And then they also confirmed that the more techie looking Honda logo that we've seen on some of their electrics, like the CUVE and the new WN7, well, that's going to become across the board their Honda electric two-wheeler logo. Another big change though that I noticed walking around the show when I went past the OHLINS stand was just how much they've updated their branding and changed their look. And I've got to say, this one feels a little more risky because it's such an iconic design and a sort of brand that gives you an immediate sense that a bike has some quality to it, that it uses good components in the same way that you'd associate that with perhaps Brembo's branding. But I will say, I do think they've done a good job on this one. It looks nice and clean, it looks a little more modern, but then also with just enough in common with the old logo to make it still recognizable. Another rebrand as well, actually, that just popped into my my head that we haven't talked about on this show is the Norton rebrand, because actually when it was announced, we were out at EICMA covering all the new bikes. I'd love to know what you think of that one as well down in the comments. Again, I think they've done a good job of evolving it and modernizing it, but also these changes, I don't know, they don't always sit well, and so I'd love to know your take. Out of Honda and OHLINS and Norton, who's done a good job and who hasn't quite hit the mark? Now, with all the flux at KTM over the past year or so, I don't believe they've actually been running an adventure experience. These are brilliant opportunities to go and try manufacturers' adventure bikes out in a proper off-road setting. And you can do it in the UK with like Honda, with BMW, with Ducati on the Desert X, and also with Triumph, which is one I tried out recently with the Scrambler 400XC. Thing is though, KTM just this week have announced that it's gonna be back for 2026, and this time they're partnering with former British Enduro champion Alex Snow. Now they say there'll be a range of experiences across the UK, so it'll include Devon, Somerset and Wales, and also you can get one-to-one tuition, or you can do group tours and the sort of typical adventure day like that. They also will have a range of bikes from the more aggressive EXCs through to the new 390 Enduro, which I rode a few weeks back and thought was brilliant fun. But then also, if you want something a bit more adventure-y, you can ride the 390, 790 or 890 Adventure R. Should be something to suit all tastes. They say it's kicking off from January, and we'll hope to get down there and try it out and let you know if it's any good. Now, I'm sure many of you will know of the Bike Shed, a motorcycle club and cafe/restaurant and shop and motorcycle culture brand, but I don't believe until now you've ever been able to buy a bike specifically from them or designed by them. Now though, they've just launched a program called Bike Shed Moto Works, and I believe the Bike Shed's founder, Dutch Van Summeren, is partnering with Fastech and also Hitchcock's Exhausts to offer you the chance to buy your very own customized Royal Enfield Bear 650, specifically branded up by this Bike Shed Moto Works. Now I believe there are 3 levels of specs, so there should be something to suit all budgets. But I'm guessing in these images and the promo video, they've probably used the top spec version because it looks like it's had pretty much everything done. And I've got to say, it does look very, very nice indeed. In fact, I'm heading to London in a couple of days, and they offered me to come in and ride it and really find out what it's like on the road. And so if you like your custom bikes and you want to see all the details and everything they've changed, then keep your eyes peeled for that one. It should be coming very soon. In the meantime, let us know what you think of the stories this week down in the comments below. And also, of course, there were masses of bikes announced over the past week that I haven't included here because we got our playlist from EICMA. And so if you want to catch up on any of those new bikes, then do check it out. Do hit subscribe as well if you want to see all the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.